He's called me disgraceful.
Of the fact that they stole the Supreme Court seat. An illegitimate president and an illegitimate member of the United States Supreme Court.
He's called me radical.
Listen, we know he's crazy. We know he doesn't have a sound mind. We know he's out of control. We know he's losing it. We know his days are numbered and we will come together.
He's called me a racist.
We've got to stand up to an administration which is too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale.
Hey, welcome in everybody. Who can remember the Tish James? Who can't forget? You can't forget the Tish James highlights as she literally campaigns on going after a United States citizen. No, not in prosecuting a criminal. No, literally in going after a U.S. citizen to find a crime. Talk about Soviet tactics. We are going to investigate the man and we will find a crime. Oh, gee, how did that happen? So now what we have is breaking news today. We have Trump winning all over the place. Welcome into Courageous Media. Thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate everybody rolling up. Please smash that like button, hit the bell, turn on the notifications, subscribe if you haven't already. But let's get into the massive breaking news that happened this morning coming out of the New York Appellate Court. Before we do that, before we get into the actual news, which I think you know what it is, but let's just take a little trip down memory lane. This video was posted several times, but remember when the oral arguments, clips of them were actually put on the internet. So what's amazing is that this verdict took this long. But don't forget that this is what the New York Appellate Court had to say to the representative of the Attorney General's office. Check this out.
With all these questions, the question of mission creep has 6312 morphed into something that it was not meant to do.
All the defendants repeatedly violated.
Ms. Vail, can you identify any previous case in which the Attorney General sued under Executive Law 6312 to upset a private business transaction that was between equally sophisticated partners?
And it was using...
I'm sorry, but what's being described sounds an awful lot like a potential commercial dispute between private actors.
I mean, you've got two really sophisticated parties in which no one lost any money. The case that you cite involved where there was damage to consumers, damage to the marketplace. You've got a scheme to get unsophisticated consumers to take out home loans. You got a collapse of Lehman Brothers. You don't have anything like that here.
And that's something you must address because there has to be some limitation on what the Attorney General can do in interfering in these private transactions, as Justice Friedman said, that where people don't claim harm. So what is the limiting principle? The immense penalty in this case is troubling.
An appeals court has just thrown out President Donald Trump's $364 million civil fraud penalty. This just happened. It is a developing story. We're getting a lot more information, a big news story for the day.
What took so long? Realize that video was posted of the appellate court's oral arguments 11 months ago, close to it. Absolutely amazing stuff when you consider that there was no victim in this case, yet they brought it anyway. Deutsche Bank, the primary lender, they didn't press charges. They didn't sue for fraud. They didn't do anything. In fact, when asked in court, would you do it again? They said, heck yeah, we made all kinds of money. When asked what their valuation of Mar-a-Lago was, it was higher than President Trump's. When any army of independent insurance or real estate specialists were asked what the value of Mar-a-Lago was, it was north of $1 billion, less than what President Trump had said. So this case from the get-go was an act. I mean, I'll give it to her. Tish James made good on her campaign promises to her ridiculous Trump-deranged, uber-liberal New York friends when she said, I will go after Trump. I will find something to get him with. The problem is what she found wasn't an actual crime. What she did was she created a fake crime and then manipulated the justice system. She got a judge who absolutely did not let Trump defend himself, a judge that completely threw his weight on the scales because, oh, by the way, his daughter was making millions of dollars fundraising because of this case. So she basically mobilized a corrupt New York justice system where everybody had their hand on the scales in order to get a judgment, a civil judgment against Donald Trump to the tune of $500 million, $500 million. Well, that judgment has been summarily smacked down, and Tish James has been publicly slapped by the appellate court. They didn't come back and say, hey, you're right. Trump did commit fraud, and we just think this, the judgment's a little too high. We're going to cut it down from, 350 million plus penalties and interest down to, 75 million. No. They threw the whole thing out. They have publicly humiliated Tish James. Check this out. We'll dive into Fox News on their reporting on this story. Let me know what you think in the comments. Before we dive into this, really appreciate everybody rolling up. Check this out.
Group in New York's appellate division changed the original decision that stood to cost Trump over $500 million. One appeals judge calling the lower court's penalty an excessive fine that violates the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution. You might remember that New York Attorney General Letitia James' office says despite this decision, they will not be dropping the case. Let's get some thoughts from Andy McCarthy. He's a former U.S. attorney. He is a Fox News contributor. He is on the phone with us. And last summer, you were helping us every single day as President Trump sat in that courtroom. Letitia James, the AG, she happened to be there as well. And at the time, I remember, Andy, you said that you thought this could be the outcome once the appellate court got a hold of it. What are your thoughts this morning?
Well, I think, Dana, that Trump may be ultimately completely exonerated on this. For now, the penalty goes. There was division in the appeals court about the merits of the underlying suit. But as you point out, what they found basically under an Eighth Amendment theory, that's the amendment that prohibits cruel and unusual punishments, there was such a mismatch between whatever wrong was actually established in the trial and the outrageous penalty that was imposed for it, which was, I think, $355 million, which with interest and other costs is already up to about $530 million.
So what we've got is we have got Tish James absolutely getting smacked by the appellate court. Now, they did not throw out the actual verdict, not yet. There was disagreement on the appellate court on that. But when you talk to legal analysts, it is heading in that direction where the entire judgment itself will get vacated, the entire verdict. So in this particular case, the penalty has been reduced to zero. All penalties gone. So Trump doesn't have to pay a dime. From reading the decision, him and his family are allowed to do business in New York again. All of that, all of the penalty aspect of this has been vacated. But what this does is it also opens the door to the prosecution of the third case against Letitia James. Realize that while all this was going on, while Tish James was making good on her corrupt campaign promise to go after a U.S. citizen, a former sitting president, to go get him, to find something on him, which is absolutely illegal. That's prosecutorial misconduct at a T. But while she was making good on that campaign promise, she herself, it looks like now, has violated a plethora of laws in 3 major cases that the DOJ is now going after Tish James for. Number one, the one that everybody's aware of, Tish James looks like she is absolutely guilty of multiple counts of federal mortgage fraud. Now, where she went after Donald Trump for a trumped up civil violation, this is a federal crime. This is fraud on a major scale because she did it over and over and over again. Everybody knows about her house in Virginia where she claimed that was her principal residence, when it can't be because she lives in New York. So that is one major case. The other is for years and years, she claimed her 5-unit tenement house as a 4-unit building because that keeps it as a residential building, it's residential classification, which means she gets residential mortgage rates backed by federal dollars. It means she gets preferential treatment from the New York Regulatory Authority. She doesn't have to comply with commercial codes. She doesn't have to get commercial insurance. And she did that for years. And then there's the final element of the mortgage fraud where she evidently applied with her father, claiming they were husband and wife. So she's got major issues with mortgage fraud. The second area of inquiry from the DOJ is actual corruption charges and misuse of campaign funds, first class trips, all sorts of things. We've got that going on. And now finally, with this judgment from the appellate court, the DOJ has also opened an investigation into Letitia James and the New York AG's office for violation of Donald Trump's Eighth Amendment rights. So this is going to get really, really ugly for Tish James. If there is any justice, she will go to prison for federal mortgage fraud. And then there will also be trials for her violating Donald Trump's Eighth Amendment rights. There absolutely needs to be some accountability for her literally going after a U.S. citizen to find a crime, which is prosecutorial misconduct. But we're going to see how all this shakes out. Let me know what you think in the comments. What should happen to Big Tish James? What will happen to Big Tish James? Those are two very big questions.